Welcome to Addicted to Busy, the podcast specifically for overachieving property managers who are dying for a little more work-life balance in their lives. Each week, we dismantle all the BS that holds us back. You'll learn how to nix those tricky, self-sabotaging habits so that you have the time, energy, and motivation to create what you really want in life. If you're looking to shift from overcommitted to overjoyed, this is the podcast for you. Let's do this. Now, your host, Anna Haviliana.
So I just finished presenting at the Apartment Association of New Mexico. And normally when I record podcasts, I like to do it from the comfort of my own home. But today's a little bit different. So you might hear some airport noise in the background. And the video quality probably isn't great, but just bear with me. I wanted to record this while everything was still fresh in my mind. And I've honestly been also working on letting go of some of my perfectionist tendencies. So this will be a good chance to practice that. Anyway, in the presentation today, we go over 4 main points. The first one, we talk about how to stop multitasking. Secondly, we talk about reclaiming time by setting really great boundaries with ourselves and with others. After that, we talk about prioritizing your health over the never-ending demands of our careers. And then finally, the point of going through those first 3 topics are so that you can create more time and space for yourself to reignite your passions or get in contact with hobbies or goals that you haven't touched in a while. And this is really personal to me. I think back to the times in my career when my burnout was at its highest, and I really wish I did have someone who would have just shown up and said, "Hey, like it doesn't have to be like this." And granted, I think a couple people tried, and I may just not have been receptive to what they were trying to tell me at the time. But that's why I'm so passionate about sharing this message now, is because I know that we have a lot of managers who they want to do a great job in their career and they want to deliver for their owners and they want to deliver for the residents. But at some point, it can come at the expense of their health or at the expense of their hobbies. So I also love really diving into the science behind it all. You know, why does reframing how we think about work and time actually make a difference? And why is it worth the effort? For years, I really believed that I needed to have absolutely everything at work handled before I could start taking care of myself. And saying that out loud right now, honestly, kind of makes me cringe because the to-do list of a property manager, I have never seen the end of it. I've yet to find the bottom of the list. But back then, I really didn't have any proof of concept, so to speak, for taking care of myself. So that's the thing. When you're trying to build a new habit, your brain needs proof that it's worth it. It needs to see that this change is essentially going to be worth the effort. Otherwise, it feels like stepping into something that is unknown, and our brain just doesn't like that. This is why building new habits, even if they're good for you, this is why they can feel very awkward at first. Your brain is waiting for that evidence before it truly buys in. But what I eventually found was that once I started taking care of myself, I didn't just feel better. I was actually getting more done than I was before, right? It was like throwing gasoline on a fire that was already lit. So in my presentations, I use long distance running as a metaphor. And there's just something about it that really mirrors the work that we do in property management, right? If you are transacting a building, going through a due diligence, it feels like a marathon, right? And so just like running, we have to build up some metaphorical muscles, so to speak, right? We have to be able to prioritize better so that we don't waste time on things that don't necessarily move the needle. We've also got to get really good about setting boundaries with our time. And then most importantly, and the one that I think makes all the difference, is really trying to increase our capacity to stay focused on one thing at a time. So after the presentation today, it kind of felt like all the runners in the room found me. And so, of course, we got into a conversation about our experiences with long distance running and how it related to what we do and our careers. And I loved hearing how running has impacted someone else's lives because it's a really good reminder of how taking on a new project or hobby is going to teach you a meta skill, right? And a meta skill is something that you learn or a trait that you develop in one aspect of your life that can be translated into multiple areas of your life. Now, hear me out. I didn't say this in the presentation today, and I wish I would have. I am not saying that you need to go run a marathon to get a grip on your work life balance, right? That is not everyone's thing. But you do need to have something that allows you to either express or expend energy. For me, currently, that's been salsa dancing, right? And your hobby doesn't necessarily have to be a huge time investment. Commitment is going to look different for everyone. Maybe it's something that you do weekly, but it could also be something that you do just monthly or even quarterly. The key is really planning it in a way that says to yourself, hey, my interests and my curiosities matter. Because if we don't plan for these things, they always end up on the back burner. One of the things that I was talking about today with that group of runners after the presentation was that sometimes people will roll their eyes at marathon runners or people who have intense hobbies. Like they feel it's kind of unrelatable. But it's not really about how much you run, and it's not about how intense your hobby is or how good you are at it. It's more so about finding something that you love and then prioritizing making space for it, right? And the kicker of it is that we don't always love doing these things in the moment. I mean, there are certainly days that I don't want to go to dance class because I'm tired and my inbox is a disaster and I've spent the day dealing with upset people. But I still go because I know that that 1 hour away from work, doing something that is creative, that actually makes me better at my work the next day. We need hobbies because we need mental breaks from work. The analogy that I like to use is, if you've ever gone on a long trip with someone, even if it's with someone that you love dearly, you know that for as much as you adore that person, after a few days, you need a little bit of space. And the same is true for our work family. For as much as you love them and as much as you're passionate about the projects that you're working on, you need space, right? Variety matters. Your brain craves it. Earlier this summer, I read this book. It was called A Mind for Numbers. I think the subtitle was like How to Be Good at Math, Even If You Flunked Algebra. And it was written by Barbara Oakley. And she talks about how when you're stuck on a problem, and she's referring to a math problem, she talks about how when you're stuck on a problem, the answer isn't necessarily to just like keep digging in and keep chipping away at it. In fact, sometimes the solution is really to just pull back and focus on something else for a while. And the same thing can go for our properties. Burnout sometimes happens because we're literally just eating, sleeping, and breathing it too much. So as I wrap this up today, I do want to leave you with this, and that is just find something that allows you to get a break and keep it simple. You don't need to run a marathon or completely overhaul your life, but if you want to, by all means, have at it. Just find something small, meaningful, something that allows you to take breaks and actually detach and immerse your brain in something completely different. Now, that could be walking, that could be trying to cook a new recipe, or maybe pulling out an instrument to play. Whatever it is, give yourself the permission to enjoy it because your curiosities do matter. All right, my friends, that is it. My flight is about to board soon, and I will soon be back in the frozen tundra that is Minnesota. Until next time, I love you. Keep going.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Addicted to Busy. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.